I'm Mimi, and this is Michael, and we are going to talk about decision making in companies today. So Michael, why do you think decision making is so important and the flow of decision making is so important in a company?
Decisions are what get the company to move ahead. Without decisions, they're going to stagnate, they're going to stay where they are, and they're not really going to change in any way positive, and it'll probably end up being changed for the negative without proper decisions being made. So decision making, very, very important, and decision making at all levels. So it's not only the CEO that needs to make the decisions or the senior manager. There are various decisions that must be made down the channels. And each person in each different level of management, and even people in their own right as workers, need to make certain decisions themselves.
So why do you think it happens that a CEO often must make all the decisions?
Well, we were all entrepreneurs once, and entrepreneurs are very jealous of they know best, and therefore they want to make those decisions, and only their decisions will be the right ones.
Okay, and it's your baby now. If you started this company, it's your baby.
Very much so, and I think that is one of the things that inhibits this whole decision-making process. There's also the other one, when you get employed into a big corporation, you're put into a position, and you feel you've got to show that you are worthy of that position. So you want to be seen as the person who makes those decisions.
So it's quite interesting with this, I'm getting back to the CEOs, the poor people now, who has to make all the decisions, and we have that backlog of things that's not moving forward because of the CEO having a stack of decisions like that on his table. With the test that we did, we often see that a business owner easily takes the responsibility, but they don't as easy delegate not only the tasks that they have to do, but also the responsibilities. And I think decision making has more to do with responsibility than necessarily with tasks, although it will flow into that.
I think that there's a very good book by Spencer Johnson in the 1 Minute Manager series. The 1 Minute Manager meets his monkey. I think it's meets his monkey. But the idea that everybody who walks through the door just says, "Boss, I need some help." And you say, "Leave it with me." And that's what CEOs generally do. And that monkey gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and your employees go home at the end of the day, and you're sitting there with the problems that they've dropped on.
The huge monkey in your
and the important thing there is to learn how to delegate those.
But that brings it down to coaching. So as a CEO, you need to teach your managers not to leave the problems in your lap, but to go and solve them themselves.
Many ways of doing that, but when they do come through the door, you say to them, have you got a solution that you think would work for this? And you discuss it with them. And then it's not a case of saying to them, before you come in here, you've got to have a solution, but ask them for a solution.
Yes.
Very often they know better anyway, because they're the ones that are working in the particular point where that issue is.
Exactly. And that brings me a bit to trust now, that you must trust the people that you have in your company, that they know actually what's going on in the company.
Very much so. I think trust is part of the problem that a lot of CEOs have. Again, because they're going to be held responsible, they don't trust other people to make the right decisions on their behalf. But it is very, very soon obvious that if you allow other people to make decisions, you can go so much further, you can get so many more resolutions to issues which will get the company to advance.
Exactly, yeah. It's almost like brainstorming. The more people, the more input you have, the better the decisions might be, or the better the company will flow.
Yes, and I mean, there are many examples of that. There's the Toyota experience, where they encourage people further and further down the line to actually make decisions which will change the way that things are done.
Yeah, and come up with new suggestions and solutions to problems. I like that, because it's a growth thing now. And it's not only the people at the top that's growing, the whole company is growing then.
that is something that is very, very important, and that's where people say, yes, but if I let those people grow, then they're going to leave me, and then I'm not going to have to start again. And that to me is fairly short-sighted, because the growth that people can give you at all levels, I mean, even down to, for instance, your cleaning staff, give them some sort of say as to how they make their business work better in terms of cleaning things. So where do they start? Where do they finish? How do they do? What products do they use?
And just as a sideline, if somebody leaves you in a better state than they came there, then you did something right.
Very much so, and also they probably left your business in a better state.
Absolutely, absolutely. The one thing that I wonder about is communication. We run around and we think we all think that somebody can read your mind. How important do you think it is to communicate to the people in your company what they are responsible for and how far they are allowed to make decisions?
I think that's again a critical thing. Is the communication is the way that people learn. So as I said earlier, when somebody comes into your office, ask them the question, how do you think we should resolve this? What do you think the solution is? If it was your decision to make, what would you do? Because it gets that person to then think about that problem.
Exactly.
And very often you will find that in the future they will change the way that they do things. I remember a manager of mine who would come down the corridor, parquet flooring, high heels, click, 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 all the way down to my office, walk into my office and say, Michael, such and such was a problem, but don't worry, I've sorted it out, and then I've done this, this and this, and before I'd even commented, they turned around and walked up. And that to me is where you want your managers to get to. I could have called her back and said, but hold on, let's discuss that a little bit further, maybe you could have done it slightly differently or whatever it is. But in most cases with her, she came up with the right solution. She had seen the problem, she had addressed the problem and moved on, but she did communicate with me.
Okay, my question is this: what if she made a mistake?
That would have been interesting, because if she'd made a mistake, I probably would have pulled her back in. And I would have said to her, okay, so you've made the mistake, how do we put it right?
Okay, so the thing that you say there is, actually you should allow people to make mistakes.
Very much so. Making mistakes is going to be part of it, especially if it's something new, and especially because in most instances we're dealing with human element. And human element is going to create problems in terms of not optimal solutions sometimes. But I've always had this opinion that you ask once, if the answer isn't no, it was yes.
So you continue.
So I continue. And if something goes wrong and they come back to me later when they say, but why did you do this? I'll say, sorry. It's easier to ask for forgiveness than to
just stall everything. Yes. And I think it's also better for the company. So what you're actually saying is a mistake should be a learning opportunity.
Very much so. And I think that in most cases, I go back to that old 80-20 principle. It seems to work for just about everything. But 80% of the time, the person making the decision is going to be right. 20% of the time, there's going to be an error. But of that 20%, about 80% of those errors will be able to be rectified, and maybe the manager has to step in to help rectify it.
But that's fine.
But that's fine. That's part of the manager's job, because it's only now 20% of the 100. Okay, of that 20% that is problematic, and the manager has to step in, or the CEO has to step in, there are going to be a few, maybe 20% of them, where it can't be rectified. And then the manager is going to have to step up and say to the client, the person that has received the bad side of it, we're sorry, let's see how we can make it up for you.
And everybody learn about that, learn from that thing.
Very much, yes.
Okay, so what I hear and what we are talking about are actually cultural things. And there are three things that we do, that we've spoken about.
Yes.
The first one is to communicate, to make sure that the communication channels are open. and that everybody knows exactly what they are allowed to do and what's expected of them.
Yes.
Do you agree? The second one is trust. To trust your team, knowing that they're not perfect, but to trust that they will do what you allow them to because you told them. And then the third one is to allow them to make mistakes and treat that as learning opportunities and I like that idea because it's all about a growth mindset.
Yes.
Not for each person, but also for the whole company.
I think that your point that it's the culture that we're talking about here is very, very important. Culture being the backbone of how a business operates, what they do, and how they do it. Yeah. And that to me is very important. So I've worked in an enterprise where it was very top down, and all the decisions had to be made by the person at the top. When I got to be at the so-called top, I changed the structure so that I had more time to spend with my people, getting that culture part of it right.
So culture is actually, it's kind of a buzzword, but there's a lot more behind it than just what we see as culture. It's really about how you behave, what you do, the way you treat people. It's all about behavior in your... but there's a lot of other cultural things that we are going to discuss on this couch here. So I think this is enough for today. What do you think? Do you want to recap this for us?
I just think that it's all very important that there are elements in a business, decision making being one of them. And how you go about letting people make those decisions is going to be influenced by the culture of that business.
Exactly.
And the culture is what is going to influence whether the people in that business want to be there, want to work there, enjoy working there, and advance the company.
And are they willing to take the responsibility?
Yes.
Yes, exactly. So thank you. I found this very interesting. So you will see us again on this couch.
Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Yes.